Ladies and gentlemen, you're getting a live view of what it takes to shoot Hey Tablo. A lot of people come together to make this happen for all of you. Did you see that new BTS album announcement? You didn't see it yet? They revealed the artwork, but before they revealed it, when they announced the album title, Arirang, and they opened like a pre-sale, so at first they dropped this. It was just a white album, right? And they announced it like this, and like the pre-sales happened based on this. And I legit, as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome! This is like super bold of them, right?" Because like they must be so confident that they can drop an album with just a white cover. And then I zoomed in, and I'm like looking at the texture, and I'm like, "It's not just white. It's like, is it marble?" And I was like, "This is awesome!" And I was like showing my wife, and I was like, "이번에 BTS 앨범 커버야." And she's like, "Oh, that's dope." And I was like, "See, they don't even have to write BTS on the album." And then someone's like, "No, that's just a stand-in. That's it's like go look." Turns out I was I was wrong. I was looking at a placeholder. All right, I'm gonna take this jacket off, and I need some coffee.
Hey Tablo.
Ooh la la, it's great coffee. Apparently, French people don't even say ooh la la. Is that right?
No, they say ooh la la. They don't say sacre bleu.
I have never heard that. Welcome to Hey Tablo. Please share this episode. So let me tell you about a pretty bad dinner party. And you know how, dinner parties always suck, in my opinion. I actually don't even know why people have them. Like friends getting together to eat, that's fine. But acquaintances sort of getting together as a chore because it's been a while and it feels like a good time to catch up. It just seems so forced. So I don't really like these kinds of dinner parties and I rarely go. But I went to one recently and you know, all these dinner parties always have that one person that kind of just ruins it, and it was me this time. So we're at this dinner thing and it's pretty uncomfortable because these are acquaintances but not even on the spectrum of strangers and total friends, they would be like closer to strangers. So we're sitting there, it's kind of awkward, and we start eating, and the conversation suddenly goes to pets and how wouldn't it be awesome? Somebody was like, "Wouldn't it be awesome if our pets could talk?" And immediately in my mind, I was like, "That sounds like a terrible idea." But I didn't say anything. And this conversation blossomed into an unnecessarily long discussion about how each person's pet would be it would be great if each person's pet could talk. And they're like, "Oh my, if my cat could talk," and all this. And it was sort of my turn to talk because I was just sitting there like just watching this whole thing, and they all kind of looked at me. So I was like, "I personally think it's a terrible idea." And everyone's like, "What?" We were having such a good time talking about imagining our cats and dogs and our birds talking. They're like, "What?" And I was like, "How how much do we really know our pets? We have never heard them speak. So technically, although we've been spending years and years with them, we don't really know them." And they're all like, just they're just looking at me like, regretting that they invited me. And I was like, what if it, what if it turns out that one of them is harboring terrible views and just hasn't been able to say it. I, I literally said it. And like you could hear forks and knives like just stop like mid slice. And it's just you could drop a pin. Ting. And right after I said it, I was like, why did I just say this? And then I kind of had to explain. I had to defend my position. So I was like, let's say you have a poodle and what do we really know about this poodle? Except that it's very friendly with me and loves me and is welcoming when I come home. And when we go on walks, we have a great time. I love this poodle. What if the first thing it decides to say is something super wrong? And you couldn't even blame the dog because clearly the dog hasn't, had the benefit of education. And then you would be like, mind you, I said all of this. I'm not just saying it to you guys. I'm saying it like I said it. And what if it's because the dog hasn't had much experience out of the house, hasn't really hung out with other dogs, hasn't really hung out with other animals or other people, and has these prejudices that it decides to make known. And then everyone's face was obviously, it was not good. At that point, people were prejudiced against me, right? So I wrapped it up really well, though. I was like, let's all thank the heavens that our dogs and cats can't speak. They're perfect the way they are. It didn't really improve anything, but that's sort of where I left it. Wow, this went on longer than I planned. Anyways, I'm sure you might have seen this clip. I don't know if the people in the room have. Have you seen that clip of Will Arnett on Conan O'Brien's podcast talking about when Conan O'Brien's parents passed away? Did you see that clip? That was last year. It was like a month ago. And this clip is amazing. I'll just play the audio for you guys. Just listen to this clip.
Bring up a touchy, actual, this is real personal subject for you.
It's okay, I know what it is.
Death in the family.
Yep. My parents asked.
So, well, first, let me just tell you the timeline because I have it here. I wrote it down last year because the timeline was so good.
Yeah.
And so I hear that your dad passes away, and I text you that day or the next day, and I said, hey, listen, I'm sorry to hear about your dad's passing, sending love from our family to yours.
Mm-hmm.
And you wrote, thank you, Will. To be honest, I blame Bateman.
Bateman is Patrick Bateman, the actor, who is friends with Will Arnett and Conan O'Brien. So Will Arnett sends his condolences the day after Conan O'Brien's father passed away. He's like, I blame Bateman, right? And then
for the death of my father.
The day after his father dies.
Yeah.
Right. So I wrote, it's not a terrible theory. And Conan texted me back, he killed my dad.
My God. My dad, can I say, in fairness, my dad would have loved this.
Okay. So then Bateman, I tell Bateman this, we're doing a thing that day. So the next day, Bateman texts you and he says, Arnett tells me you're on to me.
Yes.
And Conan texts Bateman, he says, Bateman, do yourself a favor, turn yourself in.
and then it gets better.
Yeah.
2 days after your dad passes, of course, your mom passed away.
Yeah, which I did not see coming.
Which did not see coming. So I text you 2 days after. Hey, I knew you were boss. I said, Bateman is asking for your sister's street address. Okay to give.
Yeah.
And you were busy that weekend. Like a day and a half later, you texted back. Just seeing this now. Fantastic. 625 Boston Street, apartment 12C. Tell Bateman to make it look like a robbery.
I love this clip so much because I totally know what this is. Everyone, it was very viral because people who have lost someone that they love, they're the people that that this clip really resonated with. They loved this clip, right? Because they get it. There probably were like maybe 2 people out of 100,000 that were like, how could you make light of a heavy situation like that and just being, some pieces of shit. But what I'm trying to say is the power of humor during dark times is something that you truly understand if you've been through such dark times. And also, this clip is a really good display of true friendship, like how true friends give each other strength during times of unspeakable pain, right? And this is exactly how my friends acted during my hard times, and also how I acted during, my friends' hard times. And it really did help us. So it it reminded me of um dark times that I personally experienced and how my friends acted during those times and how funny it was. If you're listening right now and you've been through a similar, like Conan O'Brien, basically his father passed away, and then like a day or 2 days later, his mom passed away. So it was probably the most difficult time. And his friends, texted him, and it was Conan who responded, who first took the first step, right? And then this went back and forth. And Conan explains later that it really helped him cope with it, right? So I'm sure if you're listening and you identify or if this clip resonates with you, you get what I mean. Long time ago, when this was freshman year in college. So one of my closest friends from high school, he got very sick during high school, and then he recovered. It was something with in his brain, and he recovered fully. And then we were all off to college, and I was headed to West Coast schools. So West Coast schools start later than East Coast schools. So I first went to the East Coast and visited all of my friends' colleges and even went to some of their orientations, which is hilarious. I went to MIT and I went to like this at MIT, you immediately go to these frat dinners so you can become like a prospective frat member. Like they kind of choose you, right? So I went to this dinner and one of them came up and was like, would you like to join our frat? And I was like, I'm considering it. And I had dinner there and everything. But anyways, my friend went to Emerson. So it's a college in Boston. And I went there, hung out with him, and then I went to my school, and then, we became college kids. During the summer break though, he he fell ill again during the first year of college. And then during my summer break, I was in Korea for something, and I heard that he was, his condition was getting really bad, and that we had to all gather because it was probably not he probably didn't have much time left. So I flew to Boston. Uh, at the time, of course, like I didn't have any money, so I took like I took this flight that was mysteriously cheap from Korea to Boston. It was like unbelievably cheap, and there was a reason. I flew to America, and then I went through like 6 different flights to get to Boston. For some odd reason, it made me like change flights like 6 times. So I was in like like 5 different cities before Boston. So I get to Boston, and obviously because of all these, you know, transfers, I got there late, and he had passed away right before I landed. So I wasn't able to see him during the last moment. He was a really good friend. Uh, so he was raised by like a single mom. So his mom was there, and then a couple days later we had a funeral in Boston, and it was just his mom and like a bunch of his high school friends, including me, right? So all of us had gathered for the first time in quite a while, and we all stayed at the mom's house. Obviously, it was difficult for us to sleep that night, and also it was the first time that the high school best friends had gathered again. Um, so we were all just chatting, and we would sleep for like 20 minutes, get back up. Hey, is anyone awake? And then we were awake at like 3 in the morning, and we got bored. Mind you, we're like basically teenagers still, right? This is freshman year, right? We're not even sophomores yet. So we're like all debating, what to do to pass the time. And for some odd reason, we thought it was a good idea to take our friends' moms' car keys and go for like a night drive. Uh, obviously, that sounds terrible, right? Because of what she had just gone through and was still going through. But we were all messed up in the head as well. So we were like, let's just do anything to get our minds off this. So we took the keys because she was sleeping. So our plan was to just take the car out and then come back quietly and just leave the keys right where we found them. So we didn't think that it was going to be, you know, it was going to turn out bad. So we get in the car. But first of all, it's like, how many people were there? It's like 8 people in one car, right? And this is not. It wasn't an SUV. It's like 7, 8 people in one car. So, and we went out there like just in our PJs. One of the friends actually brought out a blanket for some reason. So we had my friend Mike driving. We had 2 people sitting on the passenger side, and then like a bunch of people in the back with a comforter, and we're driving down this street in Boston, and it's really late, so there's no cars, but we're like going, and I guess Mike decided to speed, and we were speeding, and immediately a cop just appears out of nowhere, sirens, everything, right? And signals for us to pull over. So we pull over. And this is where like things could have avoided being bad, but just got worse. So we get out of the car, and the policeman is just, he just saw a speeding car. That's all, right? So he's walking over, and I'm like, okay, we have to do everything possible to not make this worse, right? And immediately my friend Mike does the thing, like in movies where you split your where you basically do half a split, and he's like hands to the wall. He's like the frisk, getting frisked, and he's like, and the cop arrives, and he's like, that's not necessary, right? He's like, and Mike is just like into it. He's like, I'm sorry, officer. I have nothing on me. And I'm like, that is the last thing you want to say right now. And first of all, we were speeding, too many people in the car. Uh, and we also, I don't think we had the right driver's license, right? You have to have like a state driver's license or something, something. Or maybe Mike didn't even have a driver's license. It's very unclear to me. There were so many things that were not right at that moment, especially with him basically ass out, hands to the wall, doing the splits. Um anyways, the the cops there were two cops now, and they took us into the police station. Um and guess who had to come pick us up? The mom, our friend's mom. She had just lost a son, and she had to come pick up his friends who stole her car and then speeded, and then were not compliant with the police. So she came to pick us up, and we see her walking, towards us, and we're all like, oh, we have just made this weekend harder for her than it needs to be. It's already the hardest day of her life, and we just added weight to it. Uh, anyway, so she gets us from the police station, and we go to like a nearby diner, I think, and then we're sitting there, and we're all like profusely apologizing, obviously, right? And she actually smiled for the first time in a few days, and she was like, "I'm actually really happy you guys did this because it kind of feels like my son's still here because you guys all decided to cause mischief." And I could tell she meant it. So we all apologized more, and then we hugged her, and everything turned out all right. But in the moment, it was hilarious. As soon as Mike like put his hands on the wall and then just ass out, "I'm sorry, officer. I have nothing on me, I swear." It was hilarious during a time where we weren't supposed to laugh. We weren't supposed to be funny or mischievous. Um, and that was our first experience with a truly dark day. And but I never forgot what the mom said and how her face looked, because we had just seen her crying nonstop at the funeral, after the funeral, at home. When you get home, the first thing I'll explain later, but the first thing you realize when a person passes away, there's two things that I realized that day. The first thing is it was an open casket funeral. So first thing you realize is a person that's not breathing is something you've never seen. It is such a weird sight. We don't really acknowledge or recognize a person breathing, because everyone does it, right? It's such a common thing. Like we don't really look at each other when we're like having dinner or talking and acknowledge that the other person is breathing, right? But the moment a person stops breathing, it is so visible, it is crazy. It is really, really visible. So that was the first thing I learned that day. And the second thing I'll explain later. But this was the worst couple days that she had. And not just a couple days, the whole time when her son first got sick during high school till that moment must have been utter hell, right? So how many times do you think she had an opportunity to kind of laugh? And because we were such fuck ups and goofballs, she literally laughed for the first time in a while. Like when we told her what Mike did, after we were pulled over, she actually laughed, and it was like the first time seeing her laugh in days, and I always remember that. And just seeing this Conan O'Brien clip reminded me, like as soon as I saw the clip, I was like laughing, and then as soon as the clip ended, I remembered that day in Boston. It it's so true. It like you really do sometimes need humor in dark times, and it's actually during dark times is when you need humor the most. But we have like this understandable social pressure to suppress humor as much as possible during dark times, right? Imagine someone at a funeral laughing. Maybe that person like thought of something funny and just starts laughing during like the funeral. That person would be deemed the worst, the worst human ever. But I don't agree. I think that perhaps that person remembered a really funny thing that that the person that passed away did or said. And that's such a beautiful memory, right? That's the most beautiful memories are when we're laughing with the people we love. So I would say that it is precisely during difficult and dark times that we need humor the most. That's when um, humor lives up to its full potential. It has the power to heal. And this is another story that it's a more personal story, and it happened to me later on, much later on. The second time I experienced death up close was obviously when my dad passed away. So I don't want to get into the whole story of how it happened. Uh, to just summarize very shortly, for people who know, uh, you'll know the whole story. But I went through this scandal. I don't even like calling it a scandal. It really was just people being evil. And I went through this thing called the Tajinyo scandal, where people were saying I didn't go to Stanford. All my credentials were fake. My entire family was fake. Like all of our basically our existence was fake. And this went on for years. And uh, my dad, before all of that, uh, when I was in my third year in college, my dad had cancer, and he overcame it, and he was perfectly fine by the time this was happening. Once I became a musician and everything, he was fine. And then towards the end of this terrible thing that happened to my family and I, my dad fell ill again, and it, he, as soon as he fell ill, he passed away the next morning. So I was not prepared for this. Uh, he, he went into shock, and literally hours later, he passed away. So I was not ready, my family was not ready, and it was also my first time having to do a Korean funeral. And it's very different from the funeral that I attended in Boston, obviously, right? American funerals and Korean funerals are completely different. So in Korea, we have like this 3-day funeral where I understand the logic of it now, but at the time I was like, oh, this seems like the worst thing for the family that's grieving because it requires the oldest son or daughter or or sometimes the wife of the deceased or the husband of the deceased, someone as a representative to stand there and welcome visitors. And because visitors nowadays, like they set a time, like a cap, where they don't accept visitors after 10. But when 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 my dad passed away, it was just customary to do it. If someone shows up at 4 in the morning, you're there. So you gotta like stand there and greet visitors for 3 days, sometimes without sleep. So it just to me it seemed like a terrible burden to put on the people that are grieving, right? Back to my whole thing about the power of humor during dark times. I was all obviously devastated. It wasn't just about losing my dad. It was about the fact that I felt like I honestly felt like the public had killed him and that it was a murder. So I wasn't just sad. I am extremely angry to all the people that participated in that killing and probably are living lives right now acting like they didn't. But they did. And so I was really angry, I was sad, I was also confused because this was my first time having to do all of these things. Like there's a strict ritual that you do every time a visitor comes. Like they take a flower to the front and also having to do all the things behind the scenes. Um, when visitors aren't coming, I have to like figure out, you know, a spot for the grave. I have to figure out like how to handle all of the things that need to be handled, and there's countless, right? So I'm like going nuts here. Uh, and I guess my face was just in a constant state of like this fixed state of shock. The thing is, because of the work I do, many of the visitors were famous entertainers and a lot of them were comedians. So they came. They all came. I'm not gonna name names here, but at these funerals, what happens is they come and then they do the flower thing and then they bow or they pray and then they bow to the family of the deceased. And then they go to this area where everyone eats. And it's actually encouraged for them to eat and drink and be semi loud, right? I guess the whole thing is to make us, get our minds off the situation. So they go to this area and everyone's gathered there to eat, and it was literally like an awards show because so many famous singers, actors, and comedians, and all of these people were coming. Thankfully, gratefully, they were coming to say their condolences. Um, so it was sort of like an award show, but really sad, right? So after one of uh, a really famous comedian came and after he did the bowing thing, he went to eat, and I went to say it's customary for us to go and now like greet them, right, and say thank you for coming, and you sit with them for a little while and just talk a little bit, and then you come back to to greet other visitors. So I go there, I sit down, and one of the comedians, as soon as I sat down, was like, "Where's your dad, by the way?" And I swear to God, at first, it wasn't me, but everyone around me that was like, and you could see that after he did it, like after he did the bit, he was like, "Where's your dad, by the way?" He, like, in a split second, he was like, "Too soon?" But I burst out laughing right after. It was the first time I laughed. It was like on day 2, right? And I laughed. And then another really famous comedian came and joined the table. And it was as if it was choreographed. He sits down, and as soon as he sees me, like, cuz at that moment I was like back to my shocked face, right? As soon as he sits down, he's like, "Dude, why the long face? Did something happen? Tablo, what's wrong? Did something bad happen?" And I burst out laughing again. And then by then, everyone was laughing, right? And it I can't say it made me feel happy, of course, but just like it released something from me. And after that, I started kind of joining in. And the rest of the time, the third day was much, I can't say easier, but not as, a little less hard. And I will never forget what that what what that humor did for me. So I'm still obviously friends with said comedians, and I often mention it to them. And they knew exactly what they were doing because they're older than me, so they've been through experiences like this. Um, and they knew exactly the medicine I needed at that moment. So again, the power of humor during dark times, during difficult times. Mind you, I am not saying that this is what you should do, that this is the thing to do. When someone is grieving or dealing with a shocking or depressing situation, it is not recommended to go in there just throwing out jokes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not recommending stealing, your deceased friend's mom's car. That is not what I'm suggesting. But I'm saying quite often, small moments of humor really do help. And I am saying this as someone who has experienced many dark moments and has had humor help. And now, because I had this experience, when my friends are now experiencing what I had to experience. My dad, when my dad passed away, I was in my early 30s. I had basically just, gone into my 30s. So no one around me really had any experience with losing a parent. I was the first out of my group of friends. And because I think it's because I have this experience, sort of I sort of like knew that a little bit of humor would be appreciated. So once my friends started losing a parent and having these funerals, sometimes I would be the one to make them laugh. It's a tricky it's a very tricky dance. It's a very it's either you make your friend smile for the first time in weeks, days, weeks, or months, or you're never going to see this friend again. And this one time, a musician friend of mine lost a parent, and I went to the funeral, and we sat down, and after having like a serious conversation, um, trying to give him some strength, I so Tukutz was sitting with me, and I was like, since Tukutz has both of his parents, I, I would I would like you to leave the table. This is a one parent table. And I know that might sound like like a terrible thing to say at the time, but it my friend loved it. He appreciated it so much. He was laughing. Um Tukutz was laughing, and then he actually left the table. Anyways, my friend really appreciated it, and it was just my way of, um, just passing the buck. You know, keep it going because I had experienced it, and I thought like a moment of gentle humor would help, and it did. And then later, last year, Tuka's mom passed away. The moment we heard, Mithra and I, we went and we were there for all 3 days. Uh, and we were there greeting visitors together, just helping with anything he needs. Anyways, at Tukut's, I don't know if I'm 이거 말해도 되나?
Have you asked him?
Hold on, let me just think it out. Let me think it out to the point where it's okay. Mind you, when my dad passed away, Tukutz and Mithra were there for me as well, from the first moment till the very last moment of the funeral. 3 really long days. They were there the whole time. And obviously, I was there for Tukutz. And one of the things I told them, which is what I mentioned earlier about something that you realize when a family member passes away, the most difficult moment is not the realization or when you hear the news. The most difficult moment is after the funeral in Korea. So after the 3 days is when you go back to the house that your family member lived in, right? Or if you live together, right? Um, because like I said, the first thing I learned when I was a kid was someone not breathing is very visible. Someone's absence is someone's absence is sometimes fills up a room much more than their presence. So it's when you're clearing out the room or cleaning the room or just when you walk into the room, uh, when that their absence just just falls over you like a shawl. That's the only way I can describe it. And it's the sadness you feel at that moment is just indescribable. And I told Tukutz, after the funeral is when it's gonna get hard. So try to get some rest. We'll handle some of the things you need. So just get rest, take a nap. yo, come sit down, take a nap, eat something, because it's gonna get much harder after, right? So I told him these things. Anyways, he was Tukutz is a very strong person, so he's a natural leader type. So he was, you know, even in that difficult situation, he was taking care of everything. Now, the humor during dark times comes at the very end of this 3-day funeral. So at the end of the 3-day funeral, we went to the site for the grave, and we get there, and it was really far away. So we drive there, and it happened to be pretty high up on a hill. So you would have to do a small hike, maybe like a 2-3 minute hike, but it was pretty high up. And we get there, all of the like Tukutz, his family, all the friends, close friends and family were gathered, right? Because this is the last part of the funeral. So we get up on this hill, and it was a traditional Korean funeral. So there's this small ritual that needs to be done as we're preparing the grave, and it requires like a table and certain foods and certain drinks, and like there's this specific table setting that needs to be done. So quite often, the hospital or the funeral uh, place will hire experts to do this, to run the ritual, because ordinary people don't just know it off their heads, right? So we're up there, and there's this one person sort of leading the ritual, but someone has to bring the table and all the food and all the stuff up, right? All the necessary things. And we're on top of a hill, right? And I guess they were kind of late, which was which is when where when this whole thing begins, right? The first thing is that they were late. And all the way down there, I see them come up. Well, they're like starting their ascent, and it's one old guy and one much younger apprentice carrying like a huge ice box, a table, and like a bunch of stuff. And even though it was pretty far, you could hear them, right? The old guy's like, he looks up and he's like, so fucking high. And I'm like, oh, that's maybe be a little quieter, right? And over here, we're already like at the first stage of the ritual. So it's like very solemn. There's like a lot to do here that is extremely serious. But over there, you see Rosencrantz and Guildenstern with a bunch of equipment, like, how the fuck do we get up this hill? And then I look back at the ritual going on in front of me. Tukutz and his family, extremely solemn. 10 seconds later, I look, and they're a little higher up, right? And then I look over at Tukutz and his family, and then I look again, and they're a little higher up. And the whole time, the old guy is complaining to the young apprentice how fucking high this place is. It's actually not even that high. And I'm like, wow, they really need to keep their voice down, right? And at one point, we look back at the ritual going on, and then when I looked back at the dynamic duo, when I looked back at Homer and Bart, Mithra and I looked back at looked at them at the same time. And now they were almost near us, but it was the last step, and it was really like the incline was crazy. So as they were moving up, they slipped, right? And it wasn't the old guy that slipped; it was the young apprentice that slipped. And he's like, "Oh!" And the old guy's like, "Hi, seki," which is like, "You stupid." It was basically like Homer going, "Do!" And Mithra and I are both simultaneously, we're like, right? Because we can't laugh. We're like right next to the family. We're like, and we're like holding it in like crazy, right? They get up, and now they're opening up they take out this table, and they're opening up the ice box, and they're taking out the contents. And they're being really loud even now. Like, and whole time this other ritual is going on. It's still like very solemn, very traditional. It's still happening. And this is where I lost it. Okay, so the young apprentice, Bart, he he opens the ice box, and he leaves the lid on the side and is taking out the contents, right? And the old guy is slightly near us, setting up the table, and I guess he needed something from the young guy. So he's like, "Yo, the lid. Give me the lid," right? The icebox lid, basically. So he's like, "Give me the lid." And the young guy, I swear to God, he grabs like this other item and tries to give it to him. And he's like, "No, the lid," right? He looks inside the box, like looking for some other kind of lid. And and finally the old guy's like, "The fucking icebox lid." And he's like, "Oh." And he literally said, "The fucking icebox lid." Like, not in English, but he was like, "아, 씨발, 그 아이스박스 그 뚜껑 새끼야." And that was the moment Tukutz turns around, right? Tukutz, the whole time Tukutz has been like annoyed by the noise that started at the bottom of the hill, okay? And he finally, Tukutz like turns around, and he just looks at them like this is the most pitiful. Like, why of all people did they hire the biggest idiots to handle this? And he looks at them, and then he looks at us, right? And we're like, our eyes are locked, right? And all three of us are like, in this most serious situation. After about a week or so, when we got together again, Tukutz, that was the first thing Tukutz mentioned. Yo, that was crazy. That I almost like burst out laughing because it was so weird. It was like a sitcom. Like them, just these bumbling idiots trying to do this really serious Korean traditional ritual. It wasn't appreciated, obviously, but that was the first thing he mentioned, and we laughed about it. It takes time to get over a loss of any kind, obviously. Even if you lose like an AirPod, it takes a day. I'm speaking as someone who has lost a lot of AirPods. Now it takes me about 15 minutes. I'm like, obviously I lost one. I'm surprised I still had it. But when I first lost my AirPod or AirPods, it took me like a day to get over it because I was like, fuck. I gotta just lie down here now. and sleep. I have to now just do the dishes. How did people build the pyramid without AirPods? So even losing something like a insignificant, relatively insignificant item is annoying and sometimes causes a little bit of sadness. So imagine what it's like to lose someone that loved you and that you loved, right? That it's the hole they leave is 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 indescribably big. But I'm not saying humor can fill that hole. That's not possible. Only time can not fill it, but sort of make you okay with that huge hole you have in your heart now. But humor sort of, at least for like moments, kind of makes you forget that hole exists. Because laughing brings back fond memories of when you laughed with the person you lost as well. It kind of, I would say that it kind of realigns your mind, because before before I smiled or laughed in the situations I described, or my friends smiled and laughed in their own situations like this, before that your mind is, when the shock happens, your mind is fixated purely on the negative, like, because that's exactly what it is. It's purely negative. There's nothing good about it. So your mind is completely fixated on it, on the shock or anger or confusion. But when a bit of humor, like, like that Conan O'Brien clip I played at the beginning, when someone like kind of peppers a little bit of humor in that situation, it slightly realigns your mind. Oh, yes, there were good memories. There were fun moments. Oh yeah, I remember that time. That was with my friend. I remember that time with my dad. And then, it reminds you that there's more than the darkness you're facing right now, just for a little bit. And then as time passes, that part increases a little more and little more and little more. And then at points, you'll discover that you're even making jokes about it in a loving way, just like Conan did. And once you're able to do that, is when, not when you've overcome it or gotten over it. You never do. You never get over it. But it's the moment you really honor that person, is how I feel. It's when you can laugh about the loss. That's when you really truly honor that loss. That's just what I wanted to say to you today. This clip had me on a whole journey for like a day, like a mental journey, remembering all of these things. I'm sure, if you've never experienced loss yet, thank goodness. But for people who have, I'm sure that this clip resonated with them, because it also made them remember their own journeys. And perhaps, like this clip did for me, if we all will one day, you experience loss, because you inevitably will. Maybe this episode can be that clip for you. See you next week. Share the Hey Tablo podcast. Thank you.
Hey Tablo.